beyond the war powers resolution today, Congress has bucked President Trump on issues like tariffs. Are you concerned that President Trump is losing his grip on Republicans in the Congress, and what are you going to do about it?
As the president, I believe himself has already said, every president, Democrat or Republican, believes the War Powers Act is fundamentally a fake and unconstitutional law. It's not going to change anything about how we conduct foreign policy over the next couple of weeks, the next couple of months.
Vice President J.D. Vance made those comments after 5 Republican senators broke ranks to vote with Democrats on a war powers resolution. Just 2 years ago, when J.D. Vance was a senator, Vance voted in favor of 2 war powers resolutions. So Cenk, before we get into it, what are your 2 cents?
Yeah, so a lot of Republicans are starting to break with Trump, and we're going to talk about why in this case and what's going to happen next. Are they really going to start to defy him on a regular basis, or are they going to fall back in line? Let's give you the facts first, and then we'll do that analysis.
All right, so yesterday, the Senate voted to advance a war powers resolution 52-47. The 5 Republicans who voted in favor were Susan Collins of Maine, Josh Hawley, Lisa Murkowski, Rand Paul, and Todd Young. So here's Senator Rand Paul on why he specifically voted for the resolution.
For me, this is a long-standing position. I had the same position under President Obama when there was a bombing of Libya and a no-fly zone over Libya without the permission of Congress. I've been the same as far as bombing Syria or Iraq or any of these places without congressional authority. You know, our founding fathers debated this back and forth. They wanted to be different than Europe. Europe was plagued by centuries-long war fought between the different royal families, and they wanted the people and the people's representatives to make these decisions, not one person. There's less likelihood for a mistake if a whole bunch of people have to vote. And then some people say, oh, well, Congress is so feckless, they'll never vote for war. But actually, when we've been attacked, we're fairly unanimous. After 9/11, the vote to authorize the war against those who attacked us was nearly unanimous. The vote after Pearl Harbor when we were attacked was nearly unanimous. So I think we're quite unanimous in voting for war for self-defense.
So of the 5 Republican senators who voted for the war powers resolution, Susan Collins is the only one facing re-election this year, and I'm sure that has nothing to do with it. But if passed, the war powers resolution would prevent the US military from executing any further operations within or against Venezuela, but it is highly unlikely that it will become law. The resolution would need to survive a second Senate vote, then pass the House, and even then the White House has already stated that Trump would just veto the measure, and then overriding that veto would take a 2/3 vote in each chamber, which is unlikely to happen. And speaking of the other chamber of Congress, yesterday 17 House Republicans rebelled against their party as well by voting to revive Obamacare subsidies for 3 years. Representative Mike Lawler was one of them, and here's how he explained his vote.
The fact is, Obamacare has not reduced healthcare costs. Premiums have risen 96% since Obamacare took effect. What we need to do is a 2-pronged approach. Number 1, deal with the immediacy of the enhanced premium tax credit that affects about 7% of the country, and deal with the larger healthcare issues that impact the entirety of the country. So we want to get a short-term extension. The 3-year clean extension is not going to become law. It will not pass the Senate. The objective was to get the Senate a vehicle, because this is tax policy. It has to originate in the House. Get the Senate a vehicle that they can come back with a bipartisan compromise. I met yesterday with a number of Democratic and Republican senators, and we were able to have a very productive conversation about where we think we can land.
Great. I'm glad that they're having very productive conversations, but I am struggling to figure out, like, what is the point of Congress anymore? Because Donald Trump has done everything he's done in Venezuela up to this point without congressional approval already. And he said it himself, the only thing that can stop him is himself if he chooses to stop. That's it. He's not worried about what the Senate decides and then what the House decides. He's gonna veto it. Even if they override the veto, he's just gonna keep doing what he's doing. And there is no reasonable or actual block on his power at this point. And all of this, Cenk, you know, we've been saying this for the last 10 years. He is slowly dismantling every part of our government, and it's not gonna be good. He said if I want to do something, I'm going to do something. That's what a dictator says. That's what an authoritarian says. That is not what a president says. So maybe you have a little bit more insight.
Yeah. So look, I don't think he believes in our system of government. I think that if they said to him, "Yep, no, you cannot put ground troops in Venezuela unless Congress authorizes it," he'd still put in ground troops. I think he'd ignore Congress in a split second. And so, I mean, here's a guy who, after he lost in 2020, said we should terminate the Constitution. He just doesn't believe in it. The only thing he believes in is power. That's it. And so, in terms of the Affordable Care Act subsidies, a lot of people's premiums are going to double. And as Marjorie Taylor Greene pointed out, she's like, they're at least half Republican. In my district, they're almost all Republican. So what are you doing to our own voters? Yeah, but I need money for Israel, and I need money to invade Greenland and Mexico, and et cetera. So no, there's no money left for you guys. And besides which, we were never going to give you any money. So okay, the 17 Republicans cross over in the House. Doesn't matter, it goes to the Senate. They need 60 votes. They're never going to get 60 votes in the Senate. And even if they did, it goes to the president, and Trump's going to veto it. So your premiums are going to double if you have Affordable Care Act. And well, at least you know who did it. And look, I tell you all the time when the Democrats cooperate with the Republicans behind the scenes and how they sell you out and they're supposed to lose, et cetera. But there are exceptions to that. In this case, no, the Democrats don't want it to double. It's the Republicans. So, and that's why I vote Democrat, because in the rare instances where Democrats and Republicans don't secretly agree, the Republicans, politicians are almost always wrong. The voters are different. But the politicians, my general rule of thumb is Democrats are 95% corrupt. Republicans are 99% corrupt. Thank you to Tom Massey and Rand Paul a little bit, et cetera, for bringing that down from 100%. So they're the party that was built for big business. And they're supposed to, and they do very effectively serve corporate power and the donor class. If you don't know that, okay, you got sold a bill of goods. So we're asking a question on TYT.com. Some Republicans broke with Trump on healthcare and war power votes. Why is this happening now? Because I think that's the second part of the conversation that's very interesting. A, Trump's low approval rating. B, lawmakers discovering spines. C, election year positioning. D, temporary rebellion. And I think that I'm torn on this. I think it's somewhere between A, C, and D. So in the old days, if anybody opposed Trump, he would isolate them, threaten to run a primary against them, and often would, and he would eliminate them. Now, his polling is in the 30s, mid 30s, so he doesn't have as much power and leverage to do that, and he's lost any semblance of discipline that his staff had given him in the first term. He just brought, like, instead of having a professional staff, he brought in like his, barber and his mechanic to run the government. So they're like, go daddy, go, right? So now he's going, okay, I'm gonna eliminate those 5 senators that voted against me, all 5 of them? Okay, and then I'm gonna attack the 17 there, and I'm gonna attack Tom Massey, and I'm gonna attack Marjorie Taylor Greene. He spread himself so thin that when he threatened to nuke the entire, politically, Indiana state legislature of Republicans, he was threatening all the Republicans in Indiana. They were like, yeah, whatever, dude, go pound sand, and they defied him. So his low approval ratings definitely matter, and that's part of why you're seeing this kind of rebellion. But also, it's definitely a little bit of election year positioning. Those 17 House Republicans are going to go back home to their districts and go, I am such a moderate. Don't worry, I am not like Trump and the other Republicans. I am nicey, smiley Republican. And then as soon as the elections go over, tax cuts for the rich, oil subsidies, wars for defense contractors, et cetera. So of course they don't mean it. And I think the only question left is the rebellion temporary? And I think the answer is no. I think that eventually Trump is going to be so intensely unpopular that almost everyone is going to leave his side.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to believe that you're right. And yeah, I mean, you make a strong case. They are typically just worried about their reelection campaigns. They're worried about their donors, but things are so bad right now that even they, I think, have to, even if they're not getting the prompting from their constituents, they can see the writing on the wall, right? They're going to be complicit in the downfall of this country and, the elevation of somebody like Donald Trump into a role that is, calls itself a presidency, but is more akin to a dictatorship, similar to what we've seen in other major world powers around the world. If you think about it, on the world stage, you have like the US, China, India, Russia. Look at the leaders who are leading these countries.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.